What's happening, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Chamber Podcast. My name is Rob Johnson. Joining me in studio today is Chris Vish. He is the owner and associate broker of Wentworth Real Estate Group. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, real estate, incredibly dynamic field. We were just talking in the pre-show about, how much changes and how quickly it changes and the players that change and all of that. Wentworth, for me, especially here locally in Brighton, has been, see you guys everywhere. It's blowing up in a really good way, and you guys operate Fenton, Brighton, Traverse City. Walk me through just kind of this trajectory that you guys have been on and how you've served people exceptionally well and how you've grown as you have over the years.
Yeah. So it's been pretty wild since, we'll call it 2020, right? You've got all the kind of the lockdown things, limited markets, interest rates down, come back up, like all these factors. And we were just talking before about so many real estate professionals leaving the industry because it's gotten tough, right? And we have continually, year over year, been on a growth trajectory in terms of families served and units of volume, those kind of things is the only metrics we have to track on the business side. But the agent count hasn't went up a ton to match that. Kind of an example is just this last quarter, the state of Michigan was up, I think it was like 0.3% overall, finally getting a little bit of interest rate relief. And we were up 31%, which is just phenomenal numbers. And to do that, you're getting granular really with X amount of agents serving X amount of people at a high level. They're happy with their service and how you took care of them. And now you're getting their friends, their family, and getting to represent them as well. And that's how that grows. But to be able to weather those collective storms of all those things in the last 4 years, if you're not in the space, you see things on TV, but it's like every day it's something different. And to be able to pivot and stay focused on the client experience and representing them is the only way to get through it.
Yeah.
That's kind of been what it's been for us. Because I think we've only gone up, I want to say it's like 10 or 12% in terms of personnel in the last 2 years. But to go up 30-ish% overall, that's a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely the right balance. And looking at the numbers here that we pulled and talked about in the pre-show, number one independent broker in Michigan, number one volume sold in Michigan, and number 43 mega team in the whole United States. Like, that's no small feat.
Pretty big stuff. And especially when you look at some of the other brokerages that are in that conversation, that brokerage team scenario could be 200, 300 agents. And we're right around 50 right now across all the offices in aggregate.
Yeah. And still putting up those numbers.
Yeah. And that provides good careers for the people that work with us, and the people that choose to work with us are getting people that are every day in the space, understand the changes, the market, things that are happening 2 weeks ago isn't today at this point. And they understand that there's no recreationalists that we have, no onesie twosies. And that level of service just keeps projecting back. And the marketplace tells us, hey, we like that. Keep doing it. You don't grow if people don't like what you're doing. It might work for a minute, but that client satisfaction, those reviews, that's how we know to keep doing what we're doing.
Talk to me about the origins of Wentworth and how and where it started and how it got to where it is now.
So it's really interesting. I'm a broker owner of just this Brighton location. John Wentworth started as an individual agent in the early 2000s and was just, one of these people that's just an absolute natural because he focuses and relates on everybody he's in front of. If you've ever met John or talked with him, you know that he's like not looking at you, looking into you. And he and I are very similar that way, where we're really trying to figure out how do we help this problem. It may not be a real problem, but it could be we need to move for a different occupation or whatever that is. It's still a problem, right? We want to try and find that solution. And he's the exact same way. That's why we kind of align so well. And he just kind of took off. And it was John and then John and an assistant and John and two assistants and John and three assistants, I think. And then he brought a couple agents on and continued to grow in that southern Genesee County market. And at that time down here, nobody was really aware of what's going on just one county away. It's a 20-minute drive, but it's like there's a wall there. We always talk about like at Center Road, it's like, just nobody knows what's going on because they're not in the space. And he ended up going independent, acquiring the location in Fenton, and continuing to grow from there. And at that point, I think he had like 10 or 12 agents, and he grew that location into the 30s, all high-producing agents. They expanded in the Traverse City market. One of their lead agents, Matt Beaudry, went up there and heads up that office. And then they acquired the location like 3 years ago in Brighton. And we ended up connecting, and through a series of meetings, decided it was a good fit for us. And my wife, Catherine, is a business partner and does, a ton within that space. And we were kind of tasked with giving this office life with local agents that live in Livingston County and in the Brighton community. And that's been great because, now we have an event, and we're probably going to talk about events later, and when our staff is in the office, 100, 200 people of these hundreds of people know at least one of us. Hey, how you doing? I haven't seen you a little bit. And it really allows us to connect with the people on a face-to-face basis. That's been a big deal for us. It's fun, right? You really enjoy it.
Well, it takes a lot of talent, thought, planning to bring a team about the way that you guys have and to have these results. How does the training, service, and employee retention model work inside of Wentworth?
For us, we're really focused on trainings. So we have automatically built in our schedule, we have at least one training a week. We have a parallel training the next day here in Brighton, and it usually be on a different topic. We have our entire training map cataloged inside of our internal data service. So at any time, any agent can go back to any portion of the onboarding training, and all of our trainings are recorded going back. So there might be 300 or 400 trainings saved there that are available on a topic if you want to pull it up. So that's a big focus for us. The other big piece with the training is involving other agents and senior agents within the brokerage. So I may train something one way and it may not resonate. 2 weeks from now, we'll have a different agent train on the same topic, but it resonates with you. So you're hearing it different ways, different voices. And between that and then kind of cataloging and sharing our experiences on unique real estate situations, Michigan's kind of the Wild West of real estate, being a non-lawyer state. It's a little bit different. You can use a chicken for an earnest money deposit. Still, as the law reads, it's consideration, right? To be able to share those experiences and then kind of translate the serum, if you will, of how to fix those problems. Yeah. That really accelerates anybody who is new or has been in the business, their learning curve. Because my weird situation I figured out is now our weird situation we figured out. And now we all know, hey, if that happens to us, I either know what to do or I know who to call. Yeah. And that gives you extreme confidence to be able to say, I can help you through any situation, potential client.
That makes sense. Now, something that I think about a lot, and I've been in and around the real estate market since I was 6. My mom's a realtor, still is, up in northern Michigan, and it's something I'm super familiar with. And I found that where a lot of agents go awry is when the market is rough, they start to diversify what they do. And, they might, be 50% in real estate and 50% in insurance, or 50% in real estate and, 50% in just a completely different industry. And that is a problem. I've seen, because now they're not all in at a granular level on what they can do to serve people well and, counteract when the market isn't going well. And you guys have had success in one of the worst interest rate markets in American history.
Yeah, in terms of how fast it pivoted, absolutely.
Yeah, well, and inflation as well.
Correct.
Even in the 80s when you had interest rates in the teens, the cost of living isn't what it was now, and inflation and home prices compared to the median household income, far more advantageous ratio than what it is today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I was coherent in the 80s. I'm that old. So I do remember how different it was. You have to be a really different individual to be able to juggle multiple businesses and still perform at a high rate. I know a few people that do that and do that very well. But for the most part, you have to be pretty focused on what you're doing. It's a wake up and go to bed thinking about it thing. You hear a lot of talk of balance, and unfortunately, I think in real estate, it's really hard to achieve that work-life balance unless it's scheduled. It's not going to be on a daily basis because you're representing people that really count on you. And if they're nervous about something or have a serious question or concern, my business hours are 9 to 5. Kind of sometimes just doesn't cut it for those folks, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I have some agents that do that and do well doing that. I think for us, we just take it so seriously that we really try to have that high level of availability and focus. But to your point, we have agents that are dual career but are transitioning. They have a timeline, they have a game plan on how to make that work. But it's very tough, yeah. The other thing that we do kind of to combat that, we do a lot of partnership on transactions within the brokerage. So we'll have, call it Gary and Alan, who get along very well together, and maybe they have complementing personalities, and those two will work together based on their availability. So that client always has somebody available if one's on showings, one's on appointments, the other one's not. So we have at least 200% more coverage for that person. It's like for me, if I'm at a training and have to conduct a showing, I'll have to have one or the other covered. But I have that availability, having so many qualified people around me that nobody's going to miss anything. They're getting the best. That's how we kind of work around those factors.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit in the pre-show about just marketing and how you always need to stay out there and keep advertising. And one of the ways that you guys do that is being super ingrained in the community with your events. Walk me through some of the bigger events that Wentworth does specifically here in the county.
So the offices in Fenton and Traverse City both have a very extensive, especially Fenton, detailed schedule. And their location in Fenton, right, it's a lot bigger parking lot, more square footage. In Brighton, we kind of have our smaller location, and I think everybody's aware of what's happened with the parking situation downtown, right?
That's great.
But,
Yeah,
we'll just
awesome.
move on, right?
Yeah.
But for us, we are very big, and my wife Catherine is pivotal. Stacy in the Fenton office is pivotal on making sure these things all work, walk, and talk great. We do homecoming. We had, all of our agents in the office. We probably gave away, I think it was and it was oddly warm. We only gave away 5 gallons of hot chocolate this year, and I can't remember what it was like. I think it was like 400 cookies, though. It's never too warm for cookies. Our next focus will be Holiday Glow. And I think we gave last year, I think it was like almost 20 gallons of hot chocolate away. I mean, everybody seems to love it. We do like a hot chocolate bar with toppings and that stuff. It's just a lot of fun. And you're in and you're out, you can get back to it. It's not like a major time commitment. If you're coming through, just pop in, grab something, and take off. That was really big, and that's a big one for us because that's where I proposed to my wife, was at Holiday Glow. So
Nice.
pretty festive there.
Yeah.
And then we have Ladies' Night coming up, which I believe is in December. Hopefully I have the right date. I should know I'm working in it. But we will do, there's probably going to be, last time I think there was like 700 to 800 people came through the office, like physically within the office. We have like a life-size Santa taking pictures with the ladies, and then there was kids walking around and kids wanted pictures with Santa. And I mean, we must have taken 200, 300 pictures that night. It was wild. And our Santa is the best Santa. You know who you are. You're the best Santa.
We'll make sure he sees this. Love it. Well, that's awesome. And what's the why behind all of these events? You know, what's the reason that you guys do them?
I think for me, it's always been the kind of the secret to sales success, if you will, is to be somebody that's relatable and people enjoy being around. If you have a high level of mastery, unless you're like a surgeon or a lawyer or somebody like that, it's not going to translate if you're not somebody that people want to be around and understand, you know, and for us, it's just such a more personal business. And the we call it the transaction life cycle. You know, if you decide you want to move and we go look at a house this evening, it'll be a 35 to 50 day period of time until you even close on it, because we've got all the 189 steps of a real estate transaction to work through. I think that's the number. Catherine knows that. And it takes that much time. You're riding with this person at least that length of that transaction cycle. So you have to be somebody that's relatable, local, and people understand. And that's a big piece of it, because you won't get to show and express that mastery if people don't want to be with you. I mean, I tell newer agents all the time, if your client wouldn't go grab a burger or a coffee with you outside of what you're doing, we got to get a little bit deeper with these folks, let them know who we are and that they're important to us, right?
Well, it's a huge life transaction, and a lot of people, especially first-time home buyers, don't know what that process looks like. And so they're putting a tremendous amount of trust in you and whoever it may be. And that is unnerving. And, you know, the most that you can do to, you know, try and alleviate that, that's where a lot of things are, you know, won and lost is, you know, do I actually like this person or not?
Correct. Yeah. We start, a lot of our first-time buyers, or we're seeing now buyers that have been in their home for 30 years and they need to downsize. And if you look at, you know, last 30 years have been like, they're kind of first-time buyers again. You know, you have the internet, you have all the different third-party sites, you have remote online closing sites, and it's unfamiliar to them. They haven't done it. So we'll take either of those groups and anybody in the middle. We have a really detailed buyer's guide that Catherine and I developed, and we'll set a meeting in person if you would like before you even go tour a home. And here's the process from absolute start to absolute finish, right up to changing your utilities over. People forget that, right? You show up to a dark, cold house. That's not fun. Right. We have all the steps in there. So now let's take that kind of that fear piece away and just kind of focus on that excitement and see if we can't get done what you want to do, solve that problem for you.
Yeah.
And that educational piece has been really big. I mean, I've met with several first-time buyers, either that were referred to me or working with agents in our office that we know, and you know, we're getting up to leave, we're coming up with a game plan, and you know, the client's like, "Hey, thanks. That really all makes sense now. You cleared up a ton of misconceptions for me," and we should be thanking them in this scenario, and they're thanking us. I mean, that's big. You know, for them to feel that educated in that half an hour, 40-minute time period, and they take that book with them, they can consult it later and call with questions. I know a lot of organizations aren't taking that time on the front side, and that's when it gets kind of choppy in the water in the middle of a transaction.
Yeah.
And I think that helps us out a ton to have agents educated on how to do their business, but also how to educate those clients so they understand it too. You know, you can only say just because. Why do we got to do that? Just because, right? Why? I want to know. I want to know what I'm paying for, where I'm going, what I'm doing. What is that timeline like?
Yeah.
And to be able to educate those people is big.
Yeah. Just because is not a sufficient answer, especially when someone's, you know, brand new to a process. It doesn't give them any sense of, you know, security around, you know, you being an expert at what you're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Very good. So as we're sitting here right now, you know, interest rates are starting to drop. You know, we're heading into the fall, winter season. What does 2025 look like for Wentworth overall? What are you projecting?
Get the crystal ball out.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I think
there's
that-
nothing really big coming up in November. There's no monumental election or anything going wild like that. So
Thanksgiving?
that's nice.
Is that November?
Yeah, Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Yeah,
Biggest thing coming up?
I think there's a lot of concern about this upcoming election. I think in either instance, once the election's conducted and we have a clear result, I think that the public is going to have some kind of a comfort level one way or another, because at least it's not indecision. If you feel like you lost or won or lost wherever you're sitting on the aisle, at least you'll say, well, okay, we have a known quantity here.
Yeah.
I would suspect that you may see some modifications on the jobs report, and or depending, some redirection of Fed buying for the 10-year bond that would both pieces would soften rates a little bit, because rates came down. I mean, right, you just said it. We've been tracking up the last 10 days.
Yeah.
Because the jobs report that came out.
Yeah.
So if that softens or the bond softens, the rate will soften.
Yeah.
And that will help buyers. But there's always going to be a need to buy, sell, move. And I think the biggest piece is whoever can pivot and adapt the quickest, find the solutions and reduce the pain points, is who's going to stay in business. I mean, I've been saying for 4 years now, every day we are in a war of attrition.
Yeah.
We just have to outlast whatever the industry throws at us and make sure we're doing that by high levels of service and really just being involved with your people. And it should sort itself out.
Yeah.
It continues. I haven't been wrong yet. It continues to do it. So I'll take, if it's luck, I'll take it, But I think you're going to see an uptick in transactions, especially late season. Michigan notoriously is like December, January, February, the market slows down substantially just because it's cold and the holidays, and I don't want showings in my house with the Christmas tree up and all those oppositions. I think you're going to start seeing a comfort level and kind of that building up a little bit. That sales volume is going to kind of increase a little bit. And I think coming into the summer, 60% of your buyers also have a home to sell. So when those buyers see the home they want, they're probably going to sell theirs, and that creates inventory. Inventory has been our problem for half a decade, especially in this county. We were at one point, we had like 15 days of inventory in the market. I mean, it's absurd. That's like, because everybody is really focused on moving to this county, and you can't make the county bigger. They can't build them fast enough. And so I think as those people want to sell, downsize, whatever that life situation brings them, we'll see more inventory. We'll see a little bit of softening in the rates. And I think it's going to be a good year.
Very good. Last thing. So just plug for you guys, website. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you if they want to, start working, going down that path of, working with a real estate professional?
Yeah. So social media is really big for us. And we do a lot of unpolished, real videos, posts, those kind of things. We don't do a lot of a finished product. So if you just go to either the Wentworth Brighton real estate page, right on Facebook, that's all of us right down here in Brighton. If you're in Genesee County, a lot of the Fenton agents live in Genesee County. I'm very familiar with that. If you're looking for, Fenton, Linden, all the way up, keep on going into the south side of Flint and north of Flint, just go to the Wentworth page, the normal Wentworth page, Wentworth Real Estate Group. It's really just 3 words, and we pull right up. That's the easiest way to connect, because you can see who's posting there. Just shoot us a direct message is the easiest way. All of us have profiles on Zillow, so you can see all of our reviews, see what our clients think. Those are not like any other kind of review. They're actually fact checked. They call them and verify. So you can't fake that. We have an overall company rating of 5 stars. Not 4.4, 4.3, a 5-star rating with verified reviews, very difficult. So you can also search us that way and see what people are saying, who you want to work with too. Because it's so personal,
Yeah, absolutely. We'll make sure all that information's linked up in the show notes for the podcast. Anything else before we wrap up today?
I think the biggest thing is just to look for our posts for our events and stop in and see us. I mean, that's the big piece. Just get to, see everybody and say hi. It doesn't matter if you're looking to buy or sell or do any of that stuff. Just like we like to see everybody, let them see us, and then, running at the grocery store, we'll say hi, those kind of things, That's the big piece for us.
I love it. Well, very good. Well, I certainly appreciate your time. And like I said, I'll make sure all that stuff is linked up in the show notes for our listeners.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Very good. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap up this week's edition of the Chamber Podcast. I certainly appreciate you watching. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and hit subscribe to follow along with all the videos from the Chamber of Commerce. Apart from that, we'll catch you next week with a new show. Take care.